Hey guys, tonight we're going somewhere a little grim. But don't worry, you're already doomed. You're about to step into the life of a medieval beekeeper, and yes, that's a real job people did. It sounds oddly charming, honey. Flowers, sunshine, but that fantasy is going to melt off you faster than beeswax near a hearth. Picture it now. You squinting into the foggy dawn, wrapped in more layers than a winter onion. Sweating through well before the bees are even awake. Your feet are already soaked. Your knees are stiff. And the smell of last night's fire still clings to everything like guilt at a feast. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you're still upright, comment where you're watching from and what time it is in your corner of the world. I promise you, wherever you are, it's more comfortable than this suit. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You wake before the birds, not because you're eager. No, eagerness left your body the first time you were stung in the mouth last week. You rise because the bees don't wait for your personal comfort, and if you don't get to them before the sun hits the hives, the job goes from difficult to legendary in its misery. The suit greets you like a petulant ghost. It's not really a suit so much as a patchwork collection of medieval bad decisions. The base is woolly, already damp wool that holds more secrets than comfort. Over that is stiff leather apron, crusted with wax and smoke stains from weeks of repeat use. Your arms vanish under rough linen sleeves tied at the wrists, not for style. But so bees don't slip inside and throw a sting party somewhere near. Your armpits, on your head goes a hooded veil, essentially horsehair mesh nailed to a leather cap, which makes you look like a scarecrow cursed by an angry apiarist. You tug at the veil's ties beneath your chin, already regretting how close the frayed string is to your windpipe. It chafes, of course it chafes. Nothing medieval was designed with skin in mind. Outside, the morning air is damp and smells of earth, manure, and that one dog who never stops barking in the distance. The wooden boxes of your hive sit like sleeping giants. The bees inside don't know yet that you plan to rob them. The feeling is mutual. You also didn't know you'd be sweating this much before dawn. You light your fire pot, a squat iron bowl on a chain, stuffed with green wood, dung, and herbs, meant to smolder and create the thin trails of smoke that supposedly calm the bees. Supposedly. Right now, all it's doing is making your eyes sting and your nose leak. You swing it gently to keep the fire alive, but also because it's the only thing separating your body from full-on insect revenge. You shuffle forward, your boots squelch. Remember that soft leather pair you imagined? Forget it. These are soaked from yesterday, and you didn't dare dry them near the hearth in case they warped. So now your toes are pickling in foot soup. Every step feels like a complaint filed by your spine. You reach the first hive. The bees are already stirring early risers, and like you, they don't sleep in. They don't take breaks, and they definitely don't welcome visitors in fire-smelling wool. You lift the lid with a grunt. There's resistance resin or old wax, or just the hive's way of saying no. A puff of smoke wafts over the opening, and the bees respond as expected, mildly annoyed, mildly murderous if you fly out. One lands on your face veil, buzzes near your eyes, and makes you think deeply about your life choices. You try not to breathe through your mouth. That's how you swallowed a bee last month. You steady your hands. You need to be calm. Precise, but calm doesn't come easy when you're roasting in layers. Your hands are trembling, and your legs are itchy from yesterday's sting, swelling in strange new ways. And let's talk about that itch. It's not a normal itch. It's the kind of full-bodied, simmering, internal scream that lives just under your skin. You scratch it. You bleed. You don't scratch it. You cry. There is no win. There is only suffering in wool dots somewhere nearby. A rooster crows, as if to mock you. Meanwhile, your phone is dead, but so are your neighbors, because phones haven't been invented. And most of the village barely survives childhood. You, however, are deeply alive, mostly thanks to a suit that traps body heat like a betrayal. Historically, the medieval beekeeper was seen as both necessary and slightly mystical. They tended bees for honey, yes, but also wax used in everything from candles to religious offerings. Some people believed you could talk to bees. Others believed bees needed to be told when their keeper died or they'd fly away in grief. You might think that sounds poetic. You also haven't been stung on the knuckle while trying to untangle a veil strap with sticky fingers. You finally lift the first comb golden. Dripping sheet of sweetness and immediately regret it. The bees don't want to share. They weren't consulted. They surge upward in a buzzing spiral, bumping against your veil like tiny battering rams. One slips through a hole at your collarbone. You feel it crawl. You feel everything now. This is not the relaxing countryside morning of your daydreams. This is survival in slow motion, and you're just getting started. The smoke is not doing its job. Dotted puffs and curls in lazy whirls, refusing to billow dramatically like the illustrations promised. You shake the pot with one hand while cradling the hive lid awkwardly with the other, trying not to drop it onto your foot, because yes, these hives are made of heavy wood and bad karma. The fire pot responds with a spiteful gust of ash right into your face. You cough into your veil, instantly fogging the mesh, and for a few long seconds, you are effectively blind, dizzy, and wheezing in a medieval disorder. By the time your vision returns, a few bees have stuck themselves to your damp neck, not stinging yet, just crawling. You freeze. You try not to imagine their tiny feet probing the folds of your skin. You try not to think about the fact that they seem to be exploring. You shift the fire pot to your left hand and set it gently at your feet, trying not to spill burning embers onto your boots. You can't afford to ruin them any further there. Barely boots as it is. They're stitched hide with twined soles and prayers holding them together. One of them leaks, the other squeaks. Both are full of regret. It's still early, barely past dawn, but the sun is beginning to warm the air. That means one thing: the bees are waking up faster, and so is the pain. You start the day's first inspection because beekeeping, in theory, isn't just theft. You're supposed to be maintaining the hive. You examine for disease, mites, mold, and the subtle balance of a bee society that does not want your help as you lean in. You notice something odd. Some of the wax cells are sunken and misshapen. You poke gently with a stick. A white squirming mess emerges, and you remember the warning. Foul brood, a bacterial infection. Not dangerous to you, but devastating to the hive. You're supposed to burn the whole colony if it spreads. You stare at the larvae. It stares back, or you imagine it does. It's hard to tell. Your veil is fogging again. Behind you, the fire pot smolders faithfully. You feel the smoke drift up your back, onto your apron, into your eyes. You read somewhere, possibly on a drunken monk's margin note, that smoke soothes bees by disrupting their pheromones. But in your case, the only disrupted senses are your own. You've lost all sense of smell and have your depth perception. You move to the next hive. This one's larger, older, a basket hive, woven of coiled straw, patched with wax and soot, and humming like a furnace. This is the big one, the good hive, the one you depend on when the others are being moody or infected or otherwise cursed. You swing open the lid with the same theatrical grace a hangman might use. The bees erupt. They don't scream, because they can't. But their buzzing changes, pitch, and your entire nervous system interprets it as a declaration of war. You lift the fire pot and wave it in slow circles, as if blessing the swarm. Some dive, some scatter, some vanish into your sleeves, and there it is, sting number one. You feel it land like a warm pinprick on your forearm, then another on your shoulder blade, then somehow, through your sock, a third sting to your ankle. As if the bees had memorized your weaknesses overnight. You hiss, but quietly. No one is round to help. And loud noises only make them angrier. Instead, you focus on your breathing. In, out, out again. Because something just buzzed in your ear and you need to flail. You switch gently, which is to say, you wave your arms like someone halfway between a dancer and a drowning rat. This is not graceful work. This is not picturesque. No maiden is watching from the hedgerow, sighing at your rustic labor. What you have is an audience of insects and a tunic that now smells faintly of meat, sweat, and fear. You lift the first comb. It's heavy, heavier than expected. The wax is thick. The honey glistens like gold in a sunbeam. This should be satisfying. This should feel like reward. Instead, you feel your bicep scream, your shoulder lock, and your elbow threaten divorce. You're carrying it not on a tray, but in a woven basket lined with leaves. The leaves are damp. The basket is fraying. One misstep, and you'll spill the whole thing. And then you'll really see angry bees. It's not a bee, it's just a splinter, a large one. Somehow, that's worse. Meanwhile, your neighbor Thatcher walks by carrying bundles of reeds, whistling like his job doesn't involve venom. You hate him a little, historian still. Argue whether medieval beekeepers were considered lowly laborers or essential artisans. Some records suggest they were respected for their role in producing candles for churches and nobles. Others imply they were simply tolerated, often scratched, and rarely paid well. You are feeling the second version more acutely. You return to the hives. There are still 6 to go. The fire pot is lighted now, nearly cold. You need to stoke it again. That means bending over, lifting logs, and hoping the bees don't interpret this as a new dance of aggression. As you kneel. Your knees pop. Remember yesterday's misstep in the stream. That mud is still caked under your kneecaps. You relight the pot with flint and steel, sparks catching slowly. Then a little flame. You puff gently, not too close. You've scorched your eyebrows before. The fire relights. The bees don't care. You sigh. Remember that damp tunic from earlier? It's now soaked. With sweat, yes, but also with smoke and traces of crushed bee. You don't mean to crush them, but they land, and you move, and well, things happen. Guilt joins discomfort. In your ever-growing list of emotional guests, you adjust your veil. Again, it's slipping, the string itches. You've got wax on your nose. There's a smear of something on your arm that wasn't there earlier, and you're not entirely sure it's wax. You close the hive, slowly, gently, with the reverence one might use to lower a coffin. The bees settle, or pretend to. They know you'll be back, and they are planning. The third hive greets you like an old enemy. You approach it with the kind of caution normally reserved for wild animals or distant relatives who hold grudges. It's a skep hive rounded, woven, and roughly the size of a small dog, though infinitely less friendly. Bees vibrate round the edges, already awake, already alert. You feel their buzz in your teeth. This one hasn't been inspected in 2 days, which is long enough for medieval bees to forget who you are and why you shouldn't be stung in the neck again. You remind yourself. Slow hands, steady smoke. Soft words you don't say out loud because you're not actually a bee whisperer, you're just a person in a sweaty suit with declining dignity. You give the hive a soft puff of smoke, then another. You pause, you hope. Nothing happens. Encouraged, you lean in. That's when a big dive bombs directly into the mesh of your veil, headbutting your nose through the fabric with the confidence of a creature who has nothing to lose. Your fire pot hangs from your wrist now, and the hot iron is slowly kissing your forearm through the wool. You shift it, burning your glove instead. It's not a good glove. It's not even a whole glove. Just fingers cut from another glove stitched onto a leather scrap by someone with more urgency than skill. Why? Who lift the hive lid? A wave of heat escapes, thick with the scent of wax, pollen, and very active bees. They cling to the combs like thousands of tiny sentries. Your eyes blur. You blink. They blink back metaphorically, of course. Bees don't blink, but you feel judged. You reach in with your hook stick, gently lifting a section of comb. The wax bends like taffy, warm and glistening, and just as you start to pull it free, it snaps. Honey splashes. 3 bees lose their footing and land on your sleeve. One crawls directly into your armpit. You freeze again. Your arms are outstretched. You can't put them down without smashing a bee. You can't raise them without losing the comb. You're in stasis, somewhere between a statue and a very concerned where the vein. Your face itches, your nose itches, your entire sense of self itches, but you can't scratch. Your hands are occupied. Your veil is in the way. The only thing you can do is whimper softly into the mesh and hope the bee in your shirt gets bored and leaves. It doesn't. You lower the comb into your basket, now sticky from previous sections. Honey drips down your wrist. You try to ignore it. You try to think about other things. You remember that some medieval beekeepers kept bees in their houses over winter, literally inviting the hives in. Oh, their homes for warmth. The logic was simple. The bees stay alive, and you stay stocked in honey. Historians still argue whether this practice was widespread or just the product of very cold desperation. Either way, you're glad you're not sleeping next to one right now. You back away slowly, step by step. Bees follow. You should be used to it by now, the way they orbit your head like small, buzzing moons, but you're not. You're never really used to it. Each sting is a surprise. Each dive a fresh jolt to the nervous system. You flinch, your knee gives, you stumble. And then you step directly onto a bee. You feel it through the thin sole of your boot. You feel the crunch, then the sting. A bolt of pain shoots upward. You yelp. The fire pot swings wildly, smacking your shin. Smoke whooshes into your face. You stumble again, somehow managing to stay upright, but your basket tips. Honey sloshes. You stare at the spilled gold. A few bees land on it, trying to reclaim what's theirs. You consider just sitting down and letting them win. But no, you straighten. You adjust your hood. You wave the fire pot in what you hope is a vaguely threatening arc. You are the beekeeper. You remind yourself. You are in control. You are, oh no, another bee is in your hood. This one has ambition. It crawls across your temple, behind your ear, down your neck. You go rigid. You feel every footstep. You don't breathe. You don't blink. You don't even exist fully in the moment, just a hovering consciousness surrounding a very anxious bee. Then it stings, right at the base of your neck, where your nerves converge and your pride dissolves. You let out a muffled noise, not quite a scream, more like a hiss mixed with an apology. You rip the hood back just enough to shake it loose, just enough to let 5 more bees in. Perfect. You slap the veil back down, hoping none of them noticed. You retie it tightly. Your throat throbs. Your hands are shaking now. covered in honey, soot, and old bruises. Meanwhile, your fire pot has gone out again. Of course it has. The embers died during the chaos. That means more flint, more breath, more soot up your nose. You trudge back to your hut to relight it. This is not a short walk. It is a walk of shame, of sweat, of squelching boots and internal screaming. Every step is narrated by the chorus of bees still clinging to your clothes. You reach the hut. You kneel. Your knees crack like old floorboards. You fumble for kindling, your fingers sticky and numb. You strike the flint. Once, twice, 10 times, sparks, then a flicker, then a flame. You breathe on it too hard. It goes out dot-stud again. Eventually, the fire pot glows faintly red. You smell singed wool and vaguely toasted leather. You have no idea what time it is. The sun has risen fully now, and with it the bees. Their day has begun. Yours never ended. You wipe your forehead. Big mistake. Your sleeve smears ash across. Your face. Your eyes sting again. You haven't eaten yet. You forgot too. The hunger gnaws at you. But you can't stop. You have more hives to go. More combs to pull. More stings to earn. This is your life. Or at least the day you're trapped in. You don't even look like a person anymore, more like a walking haystack having an allergic. Reaction dot, and still, the bees come dot, they know you now. They recognize your smell. They know your footsteps. They remember the time you dropped the comb last week. You are a villain in their tiny collective memory. You return to the hive. It's waiting, and you're still not done dot, it's getting hot, really hot. Not the kind of sun on your face warm that makes you feel alive and connected to nature. No. This is the kind of heat that seeps into your layers, gets caught in your tunic, your apron, your underclothes, and then just sits there like a stew of sweat and poor choices. You are now officially cooking in wool. Inside a medieval bee suit that was never designed for comfort or ventilation, or frankly, survival daughters. You approach the next hive. The heat gets worse. The bees have settled into a frenzy of mid-morning activity. This is their busy hour. When flowers are open, pollen is plentiful, and anything disturbing their routine will be treated like an invading army. You, unfortunately, are that disturbance. And you're already damp from the knees up, dripping from the elbows down, and starting to smell vaguely like smoked cheese. This hive is older than the rest. It leans a little to the left, like it's been through some things. You can relate. The structure is made of wicker, reinforced with dried mud and wax, and patched over the years with anything from cloth to bark to, possibly, someone's old shoe. The bees inside hum at a lower pitch. It's not a welcoming sound. It's the kind of sound you hear before something large and winged decides to sting you in the softest part of your face. You give it a puff of smoke. Nothing. A second puff. A few bees poke their heads out. You feel their gaze or you imagine it. Your fire pot is lighted now. Almost empty. Barely smoking. You should have refilled it. You didn't. Because you were tired. And because there's no break room in medieval. Agriculture. You lift the lid. A wave of warmth hits you square in the chest. Inside the hive, the air is humid and thick, like stepping into someone's armpit. The bees aren't happy. They cluster around the combs, flapping their wings in warning. Your hands are already shaking. Your gloves are slippery with sweat and wax. You hesitate. Too late. One bee rockets toward your face. Right through a weak point in the mesh. It hits your lip. You flinch. Hard. Your hand jerks. The comb you were about to lift slips sideways and crashes down against the hive wall. Honey. Splatters. Wax. Crumbles. The hive erupts. Bees pour out like smoke from a broken chimney. They don't dive so much as swarm. a mass of gold and black, vibrating, crawling, zipping in patterns too fast to follow. Your instincts scream, your knees want to run, but your medieval boots say otherwise. You stumble backward. One bee lands on your throat. Another stings your thigh through the fabric. You lose count after 5. You duck your head. You can't see. Your veil is fogged. The fire pot is swinging wildly. You trip over a rock and nearly fall flat into a patch of nettles. You stagger, right yourself, and finally manage to close the hive badly. It doesn't shut cleanly. You leave it slightly ajar. A cardinal sin in beekeeping. But you don't care. You're trying not to panic. You're trying not to cry. You're trying not to vomit from the sheer wave of heat, venom, and shame washing over you. You stagger back toward the shade of a tree. Your lungs burn. Your legs are shaking. You lower the fire pot and set it in the dirt. Then yank off your veil and gulp in air like you've just surfaced from a medieval drowning. A few bees follow you, still clinging to your clothes, your skin, your dignity. One lands on your lip again, this time. It stays there. You try not to move. You try not to blink. You try not to think about how much this job pays, which is, by the way, nothing. Unless you count you get to keep some honey as compensation. Even then, most of that honey goes to your lord, your church, or the town candle maker. You're the middleman. You're the delivery service. You're the idiot in wool who walks home covered in stings and gives away the goods. Historians still argue whether most medieval beekeepers were tenant farmers, tradesmen, or unluckiest son in a family with too many children. Records from manorial rules mention honey rent, a kind of tax paid in combs, not corns. You don't get rich doing this. You get tired as you sit in the dirt, bees crawling over your sleeves. Your neck, your socks, which are still wet. You reflect briefly on modern life. Meanwhile, your phone is still non-existent, but you find yourself yearning for a fan, a fridge, or literally any form of breathable fabric. Eventually, the stings start to tingle more than burn. You count 7. 1 on the neck, 2 on the thigh, 1 under your arm, 1 directly on your pinky knuckle, 2 on the back of your knee. How? Why? You don't know. You just accept it. You stand slowly. Your knees argue. Your back stages a mild protest. Your head throbs. But the day isn't over. Not even close. The sun is now high. The bees are officially active. And you, poor, trembling shell of a person, still have 2 hives left to check before noon. You retie your veil. You relight your fire pot. You dip your hands in a nearby bucket. Not to wash, just to feel something cool. Your tunic has stiffened in places. The leather of your apron creaks when you bend. You smell like smoke. Sugar and something vaguely herbal and unpleasant maybe. Crushed nettle. Maybe panic. You move to the next hive. You don't lift the lid right away. You pause. You wait. You breathe. The bees buzz round the opening. You imagine they're whispering to each other. Here comes the fool again. You lift the lid. They were right. You thought the veil was bad. You thought the boots were bad. But you haven't truly suffered until you spend a full hour inside a medieval beekeeper's helmet with your own breath as your only companion. Let's clarify something. This isn't a helmet like a knight might wear. There's no shining metal, no elegant plume. It's more like a collapsible birdcage strapped to your head with leather thongs and the vague hope that bees won't figure out the gaps. It's topped with stiff canvas, patched from smoke burns, reinforced by generations of failed sting protection and weighted by the addition of thick netting that drapes down round your face like a mosquito. Curtain that hates you. Today, it feels especially close. Not physically, emotionally. Like the helmet has grown tired of your complaints and decided to press itself tighter to your scalp as punishment. Every breath you exhale hits the inside of the mesh and bounces back at you, warm and moist and laced with the scent of your own panic. You are now steaming in your own head. You trudge toward the fifth hive, feet dragging, helmet slightly askew, breathing shallow to avoid fogging the veil, which is impossible. It's always fogged. You could wipe it down, but that would require taking off your gloves, and your gloves are coated in honey, soot, and let's be honest, shame. So you squint through the haze like an old man staring into a campfire, hoping the bees don't notice your deteriorating mental state. The hive is humming, not gently, not peacefully. This isn't the contented buzz of bees at work. It's more like a warning light. The hive itself is groaning under the weight of its own population. You step closer, and the sound deepens. It's no longer a hum. It's a low, vibrating drone. Like a throat singer rehearsing for a funeral. You offer a puff of smoke. It backfires. Literally. A small ember flies out, bounces off your veil, and disappears down your tunic collar. You jerk. The fire pot sways dangerously. You cough, smoke entering your throat, making your eyes water. The helmet traps the tears. Now you are blinking through soot, fog, and a rising internal scream. You lift the lid anyway. Inside, the combs are huge, oversized, sagging slightly from their own weight. These bees have been busy. There's a smell stronger than usual, fermented. Almost, you lean closer. Despite your better judgment, the combs are dark, not golden, almost brown. You touch one gently. Your fingers come back sticky and slightly sour-eyed smelling. This hive has started making mead. Well, technically, they haven't. But moisture got into the honey stores and fermentation has begun. It's not uncommon. Medieval beekeepers sometimes used it to their advantage. Diluted honey left out for weeks would start to ferment, resulting in a rudimentary honey wine. But inside the hive, it's a mess. The bees are drunk. The smell is strange. The air is thick, and these bees, they are not friendly drunks. One stings you immediately, through the glove, right at the bend of your finger. You wince. Drop the comb, and it shatters, honey splashing onto the high floor. The bees react like you've insulted their queen, which, accidentally, you may have just done, because there she is, the queen, larger, slower, surrounded by attendants, and now exposed. She doesn't attack. Queens never do. She merely observes. Disapprovingly, you attempt to gently replace the comb. But your fingers are too swollen. Your breath is fogging your veil again. Sweat is dripping from your temple. One drop falls directly into your eye, stinging with salt and despair. Meanwhile, your legs have started to itch again. Not just a normal itch, not even a sting. No, this is the insidious chafe of wool against sensitive skin, multiplied by heat, moisture, and the occasional wandering bee. You shift your weight, trying to rub one leg against the other for relief, but all it does is trap more heat and send a fresh puff of bee-scented air into your helmet. Historians still argue whether these veils were truly effective or just symbolica. Way to pretend you had some control over a job that involved constant insect assault. Some claim they were adaptations of falconry hoods. Others think they were just gardening hats with netting stapled on. Whatever the truth, yours isn't doing much besides steaming your brain. You pull back from the hive. The comb is ruined. The bees are furious. You haven't eaten. You haven't sat down. You've lost 2 hours and gained 5 new stings. And your helmet smells like burnt breath. You trudge away, arms sagging, basket dragging at your hip. You don't even bother to wave the fire pot anymore, it's mostly ash. The helmet sits heavy. Pressing lines into your forehead, you think of modern bike helmets. You think of astronauts. You think of how they at least had oxygen. Meanwhile, your phone is still non-existent. But if it were, you'd be Googling how to survive the induced heat stroke. You find shade again. Collapse briefly on a log that may or may not be rotting. Fence post. You breathe through your mouth now because your nose is too congested to function. Bees are still in your hood. You've accepted this. They live here now. You remember the time, back in spring, when you tried to repair the helmet with wire from an old chicken cage. You thought it would add structure. It did. It also created 3 new exit routes for bees to enter. You patched them with wax. Bees chewed through the wax. You lost that battle before it even began. You sit there for a moment, breathing, sweating, mildly vibrating. And then buzz. A fresh bee lands on the tip of your nose, inside the veil. You do not flinch. You do not scream. You stare at it, eyes crossed, watching it clean its legs like it owns the place. You think, this is fine. You think, this is what life is now. Eventually, it leaves, and somehow, that's worse. You can't swat what you can't see. That would be the unofficial motto of the medieval beekeeper, or at least yours, now that your veil is essentially opaque with a film of dried sweat, soot, and internal fog. At this point, you are not even looking through the mesh. You're looking at it. Every movement in the world beyond has become a vague suggestion. Shapes are uncertain. Colors are guesses, and bees. These are just loud noises with wings. You're back on your feet, if not quite willingly. You've still got hives to check, and the sun is no straight overhead. It's no longer morning dew weather. It's simmer until tender weather. And you, wrapped in wool, linen, leather, and poor life decisions, are the main course. The 7th hive sits further out from the others. Maybe someone once thought isolation would calm the bees. Maybe it was banished. You feel a kinship with it. This one's taller, nestled into a shaded spot under an olive tree. You approach it like a prisoner might approach the gallows, slowly, resigned, and slightly hopeful someone might call it all off at the last moment. They don't. You crouch. Bad idea. Your knees creak. Your tunic tightens across your back, and the bottom hem of your apron rides up into your ribs. You hear something rip slightly. You don't even look to see what it was. If it's important, it'll fall off later. You try to smoke the entrance, but the fire pot is nearly dead again. You puff into it with your mouth, getting a lung full of ash in return. Your eyes water immediately, and of course you instinctively reach up to wipe them only to remember the veil. You jab yourself in the eye mesh and nearly fall over. Somewhere in your helmet, a trapped bee uses this moment to explore your hollow. You rise, slowly, carefully. You unfasten the hive lid with sticky fingers. It creaks, just a little. The sound makes your heart race. You feel the tension in the air shift. Bees are like dogs in that way, they can smell weakness inside. The combs are perfectly formed, beautiful, hexagons of amber and gold, the kind that would look lovely in a painting. You hate them. You reach for the nearest comb. That's when the veil situation becomes critical. A bee just one manages to slip through a corner you thought was secure. It's not the first. But this one is bold. It doesn't wander. It charges. You don't see it. You feel it dart first. A tickle near your cheekbone. Then a slow crawl toward your mouth. You try to exhale forcefully through your nose, hoping to shoo it away without agitating it. It moves closer. You suck in your cheeks, now trying to collapse your entire face into a smaller surface area. That doesn't work. The bee buzzes loudly inside the veil. circles once, and lands squarely on your lip. You freeze, your hands are midair, full of wax and bad ideas. Your knees are already locked in terror. Your neck is beginning to tremble. Then the bee leaves dotted doesn't sting. It just departs. You are not sure if you feel relief or rejection, but the veil is no longer safe. You lower the comb carefully and back away, hoping you can fix the breach. You remove the helmet slowly, with both hands. Like lifting a holy relic, your face emerges, betrayed and dripping, as if you've been steaming in your own thoughts for hours, which, to be fair, you have. You inspect the netting. There's a gap small, frayed, barely visible. A lazy tear that wasn't there yesterday. You patch it with wax and soot. Because that's what you have. You melt a little wax between your fingers, press it over the tear, smear a smudge of ash to hold it. You know it won't last, but you don't have time to care. You ready the veil, this time tighter, much tighter. It pinches your chin in a way that suggests mild asphyxiation. Your ears are in. Your left thumb is swelling. Your right eye twitches occasionally, either from stings or the creeping onset of hysteria. Meanwhile, your phone is still nowhere to be found. But your nervous system is sending push notifications. You're not okay. Please update your reality. You try to take a break. Just a minute. You sit on a rock. It's not comfortable, but it's better than standing. You reach into your satchel for a bit of dried bread and an onion, your lunch. The bread is hard. The onion is harder. You chew anyway. The bees seem uninterested in your meal, which is probably a bad sign. Then you hear the sound again. Not buzzing, crackling. You look down. The hem of your tunic is smoking. Your fire pot, forgotten at your feet, has tipped slightly and begun to singe the edge of your garment. You leap up. Your knee pops. You stomp the tunic with one foot while waving the fire pot with the other. You nearly fall. The bees, alarmed by your dance, re-emerge. You slam the hive shut, accidentally catching a bee in the seam. You hear the crunch. You feel its final protest through the wood. You stagger back, holding your scorched tunic away from your body. The bees pursue. You run hobble, really to the small bucket of water nearby and douse the hem. It smells like soup now. Not good soup. Desperation soup. Historians still debate whether medieval beekeepers wore full suits at all. Some argue the idea of a uniform suit is a later invention. Others point to illustrations and accounts of veils, gloves, tunics. One thing is clear. Whatever they wore, it wasn't enough. You, in this moment, are living proof. You sit back down, breathing hard, soaked, stung, steamed. You count the stings again. You lose count. Your left hand is a mitten of swelling. Your right leg has a weird tremble that might just be your soul trying to escape. And yet you're still not done. The next hive waits. You're not ready. But you go. Because if you don't, the bees might just move into your house. You're the honey thief now. There's no gentler way to say it. You can pretend all you want that you're tending the hive or managing resources. But the reality is, you are robbing an armed and highly organized society of their most precious asset. And they know it. The bees don't see you as a caregiver. You're a bandit in a ridiculous outfit. You show up with smoke and sticky fingers. You dismantle their architecture. You scoop out their food. And you leave behind chaos and smudged footprints. This isn't gardening. This is medieval grand larceny. And your victims can fly. You shuffle toward the 8th hive, which sits crookedly at the edge of the apiary like it's trying to pretend it doesn't belong here. The path is uneven. Your boots now stiff with honey and regret catch on every exposed root. Your basket is already heavy with combs from earlier, sloshing faintly with golden syrup. Each step is a negotiation between gravity and clumsiness. The fire pot swings by your side, almost empty again. The last of the smoke curls upward, not in lazy spirals anymore, but in tired wisps. Like it's giving up on you. You reach the hive. Your arms ache, your shoulders burn. Your back feels like it's being pulled apart by invisible oxen, and you still have to open it. The bees are restless. The buzz is low and steady. Like a warning drumbeat, you give a half-hearted puff of smoke. The bees hesitate just for a moment. You lift the lid slowly, praying to any local saints who specialize in insect diplomacy. Inside. The combs are enormous, not tall, but wide, like pancakes made of gold. They sag slightly in the center, bloated with honey. The bees cling to them in thick clusters, their wings fanning the liquid to reduce moisture content. You remember this part. Bees evaporate. Water from nectar to make honey. They flap until it thickens, which means it's hot in there. You can feel the heat wafting out, combined with your own internal inferno. It's enough to make you sway slightly on your feet. You blink. Once, twice. The veil fogs again. You say nothing. Words are a luxury you've long abandoned. You reach in with both hands. You support the comb with one palm, guide it with the other. The wax flexes, the honey shifts. A few bees crawl across your knuckles, their feet ticklish and terrifying. You hold your breath. One lands directly on your wrist, right above yesterday's. Welt. You freeze. No sting. You lower the comb into the basket. You exhale. You're not safe. Now comes the hard part. You need more. You can't leave a half-empty hive. You go back in, another comb. This one narrower. You tug gently. It doesn't move. You pull a little harder. It breaks off in chunks. Honey oozes everywhere on the bees, on the hive walls, on your gloves. The smell is immediate and overwhelming. Sweet. Sharp, slightly fermented. Bees begin to panic. Their rhythm breaks. The buzzing shifts pitch. You've done it now. You've triggered the defense protocol. They pour out of the hive like angry glitter. You step back, but not fast enough. One bee stings you on the back of your neck, right in the seam where the veil ties down. You slap. Instinctively, bad move. Another bee takes advantage of the gap, crawls in. You feel it on your collarbone, then your chest. You are now a man or woman, or unfortunate time traveler possessed by bees. You drop the fire pot. Smoke flares briefly as it hits the ground, then fizzles out. You don't care. You rip open the neck of your tunic, trying to shake the bee out. Your shirt comes halfway in tucked, and in doing so, drags sticky linen across your bare skin. You now have honey and beeswax on your chest, and you don't even know how. Another sting. Inner thigh. You howl into the veil. Not a full yell, just a soft, despairing whimper, like a wounded kettle. You pull yourself back together, veil down, tunic, tucked, dignity nowhere in sight. And then you sneeze, just once, but in the tight space of your veil. It ricochets like a small thunderstorm. Your nose runs instantly. You can't wipe it. You try anyway. Now you've got honey glove snot across your chin. Everything's damp. Your sleeves stick to your skin. You can't tell what's moisture and what's internal crying. Meanwhile, your basket is now full, overfull. Really, the combs slosh every time you take a step. Honey seeps through the wicker and drips in a slow, mournful trail behind you. You think about turning back, about calling it a day, but you can't. The next hive is still waiting. It knows. Historians still debate how much honey the average medieval beekeeper could expect to harvest. Some records suggest several pounds per hive. Others note that yields varied wildly depending on season, flower access, and divine bee moods. But one thing's clear: whatever they got, they worked for it. And you've worked, you've bled, you've steamed, you've been stung in places you didn't know had blood vessels. And you still have to carry the honey home. Your arms tremble, your basket groans. You lift it with both hands and begin the slow walk back to your hut. The sun beats down, the bees follow. Your tunic sticks to your back like a damp warning. You pass the edge of the apiary, where a few stray bees hover like sentries. One lands on the side of your basket. You don't even chew it. You're too tired, too sticky, too resigned. You, the honey thief, have made your heist. But there's no getaway cart. Just sore feet, a swollen ankle, and the growing suspicion that a bee may still be inside your hood, waiting for the right moment to strike. The queen is not pleased. That's not metaphor. That's not drama. That's fact, because somehow, against all odds and common sense, you've just exposed the royal chamber of the hive's ruling monarch. And if there's one thing you should never do mid-beekeeping, it's interrupt a queen while she's laying eggs. But of course you've done it. Not on purpose. No one wakes up thinking, today I'd like to violate the sacred heart of an insect kingdom. But your fire pot ran low, your hand slipped, and the frame you pulled from this ninth hive came up faster than expected. It cracked slightly, snapped in the center, and opened a path right to the brood chamber. And there she is, longer than the others, more elegant, surrounded by what historians might call a retinue. Worker bees gently tending her, feeding her, clearing her path. And now buzzing angrily because you just kicked the door off the throne room. She doesn't look at you because she's a bee, but you feel her disapproval. It radiates outward, vibrating through the comb, through your gloves, into your wrists, and straight up your spine. You've just committed political trespass. You try to gently tilt the comb back into place, but it's too late. The bees are on high alert. The workers scatter and regroup with renewed purpose. The pitch of their burst shifts into something sharp, electric. You step back, knowing what's coming. The first sting hits your temple. Through the veil, you flinch. And that movement is all the others need. Like a signal, they dive. Not in ones or twos, but waves. You backpedal, your boot catching on a root, your basket wobbling precariously in one hand. Annie sloshes, bees pursue. You duck behind a tree, gasping. The veil now pressing against your face from the outside as stingers bounce off it like rain on canvas. Inside, your breath fogs the mesh. You can't see. Again. Always again. Your gloves are thick but sloppy, and in your panicked swipe to clear the veil, you loosen the side tie. The bee slips in. Another sting, jawline, then collarbone. And now the worst sound of all. A bee inside the veil that stops buzzing. Because when you can't hear it, you can't predict it. Is it crawling? Is it still? Is it thinking? You throw yourself to the ground. Not gently. The basket tips, the honey spills. You roll over, flailing, trying to dislodge your veil, only to realize it's caught on a nail in your belt. Your body is a knot of wool, leather, panic, and bee. You finally tear it loose, gasping, eyes red, lips swelling. The bee escapes. You don't know if it stung you. You don't care. You lie in the grass, staring at the sky, breathing like a bellows. That's scene war. You wonder briefly if medieval beekeepers had some kind of Kodan agreed-upon grunt or whistle that meant I give up. You could use that now. Historians still debate whether such keepers operated alone or in pairs, and in this moment, you wish it were the latter, a second person. Someone to say, "That's enough." Someone to carry the basket. Someone to wipe the honey off your neck with a cloth that isn't already soaked in misery. But you're alone, just you. The bees and the buzzing that now echoes inside your skull like a migraine opera. You sit up. Your body protests. You're covered in grass, wax, and existential dread. The basket is overturned. A chunk of honeycomb lies in the dirt, half crushed. Bees crawl across it, confused and upset. You gather what you can, scooping with your gloved hands, pressing wax back into the basket with sticky fingers, trying to salvage something. It's messy, inefficient, and dignified. You are now the defeated thief, slinking back toward the hive with stolen goods and apologies. You try to close the lid. The bees resist. You have to press harder. You hear a faint crunch. You wince. You hope it wasn't anyone important. The fire pot, abandoned during your collapse, has long gone out. You relight it with fingers that barely respond. The flint slips. You drop it twice. Your gloves are thick, soaked through. Everything you touch feels like it's underwater. You manage a spark, then flame, then smoke. It curls upward, lazy and disinterested, like it's seen enough of your day and wants no part of it. You lean against a tree. You don't sit. You're afraid you won't get up again. The veil hangs limp round your shoulders. Your face is flushed. Your hands are trembling. Your jaw is beginning to swell where that one sting really landed. And you still have one hive left, just one. One final box of bees between you and the end of this medieval punishment. But not yet. You need a minute. You close your eyes. You breathe in. You breathe out. You hear bees. Always bees, even in silence. They live in your ears now. They've colonized your thoughts. Meanwhile, your phone is, well, non-existent. But even if it were real, it would be locked, out of signal, and smeared with honey, just like everything else you own. You think of modern bee suits, ventilated, zippered, breathable. You wonder what that's like, to see clearly, to walk easily, to finish a day of beekeeping without counting your stings like sins. But for now, you are here, one hive left, and a queen who definitely put a curse on you. Don't drop the honey basket. You repeat it in your head like a chant. I am. A last desperate tether to the idea that you can finish this day with even a molecule of dignity. Your arms are shaking. Your back has fused into a question mark, and your knees have entered a non-verbal agreement to betray you at the first opportunity. But still you cling to the basket like it's the only thing separating you from total collapse, because it is inside the basket. The day's harvest. Sticky combs, some shattered, some mostly intact, slumping into one another like survivors in a lifeboat. Honey oozes from the corners, soaking through the bottom, as low. Golden drip trails behind you like a sacrificial offering to every ant. In the vicinity, you're on your way to the wax processing hut, a generously named lane that is more smoke than roof, more soot than structure. It leans to one side, as if mimicking your posture. Inside waits the final act of your daily torment, boiling wax over open fire. You pass under a low beam and promptly smack your helmet against it. The dull vunk echoes through your skull like a funeral bell. You pause, sigh, and duck again. This time managing to enter without further insult. The air inside is stifling more than outside. Somehow, the fire here isn't for smoke. It's for flame. Real, hot, face-melting flame. A large iron cauldron bubbles quietly over it. already half full of melted wax from previous days. Floating inside are bits of dead bees, bits of bark, and possibly part of your glove from last week. You're not sure. You haven't checked. You set the basket down gently, as if placing an infant on a pillow made of knives. You peel off your gloves. They make a soft squelch. Your fingers are wrinkled, red and trembling. You flex them. Bad idea. Pain flushes through your joints like static. You decide not to do that again. Time to press the wax. The combs must be crushed by hand. Mostly, unless you've got access to a fancy wooden screw press, which you do not. Instead, you have a cloth bag, a flat rock, and the quiet determination of someone who stopped caring about comfort 3 hours ago. You load chunks of honeycomb into the cloth, fold it tightly, and press. The wax seeps out slowly, like it's judging you for the effort. You apply more pressure. You press with your full weight. The rock slips. The bag tears slightly. Wax sprays across your forearm in a scalding drizzle. You hiss beeswax. When melted, clings to skin like a vengeful spirit. You try again. It's slow. It's sticky. It smells like burnt herbs, beguts, and desperation. The fire crackles nearby, licking the underside of the pot with a sound that could be cozy if you weren't sweating through 3 layers of medieval fabric. You stir the pot with a long stick. The wax burbles. You skim off the top layer impurities. They say, old wings, bits of grass. You flick it into a bowl, already full of yesterday's debris. Then you strain the rest, carefully. Wax is precious. It'll harden into blocks, which you'll cut and sell or trade. Candles, mostly. Maybe a wax seal if someone in town is feeling fancy. You won't use any of it. You're too busy producing it to enjoy it. Historians still debate how much wax a single hive could yield. Some suggest several pounds a year. Others argue that yield depended heavily on climate, diet, and whether or not the beekeeper dropped the entire harvest into a pile of ash, which, incidentally, merely happens as your hand slips and the ladle clinks dangerously against the pot's rim. You save it, barely. Meanwhile, your veil has now fused to your neck. The heat from the fire mixes with the residual stickiness from earlier disasters, creating a kind of medieval adhesive. Your tunic sticks to your spine. Your undershirt is soaked. Your feet are now squelching again, which means either water, wax, or regret has made its way into your boots. You finish pouring the wax into molds, simple wooden rectangles, coated in oil to prevent sticking. They'll cool overnight, harden into blocks the color of old butter. You'll trim them with a dull knife, wrap them in cloth, and hope they don't melt on the way to market. You wipe your forehead. It doesn't help. You're still hot. You're still sticky. And now you're covered in deep parts. And yet, you're proud. Just a little. You've survived 9 hives. You've collected the honey, pressed the wax. You've endured fire, smoke, stings, and multiple minor emotional collapses. You look round the hut, smoke curling into the rafters, wax setting in molds, and for a moment, it's almost peaceful. Then a bee flies in. Because of course it does. You wave it away. It ignores you. It lands on the wax. You sigh. You consider your options. You decide to just let it have this one. It's been a long day for both of you. You step outside into the afternoon sun. It's lower now, orange, mellow. The kind of light that flatters everyone except people covered in soot and honey, which, at this moment, is you. You lift the basket again, lighter now, but still heavy. You begin the slow walk back to your home. It's not far, just uphill. Of course, meanwhile, your phone again. Imaginary would probably suggest hydrating. Too bad your canteen is empty. and the well is another 10 minutes walk. You settle for sucking honey off the corner of your sleeve. It tastes like victory and sweat. By the time you reach the cottage, your arms are lead, your legs are barely cooperating, your nose itches, your eyes are blurry. But you've done it. You didn't drop the basket. You're still the honey thief. And tomorrow, you'll do it all again. You've got waxware every joint, every crease, every surface of your body that can bend or stretch is now home to a thin, stubborn layer of beeswax. You didn't notice it happening, which is probably the worst part. Somewhere between lifting that 8th comb and dragging the basket into the wax hut, the wax crept in on your gloves, in your sleeves, under your apron, even behind your ears, where sweat has formed little glossy beads that harden in the breeze. It clings like a second skin, but not a helpful one, more like a prank played by the hive itself. You're back in the yard now, sorting your tools for cleaning. The sun is low in the sky, casting soft, golden shadows over the wooden hives. It would be a beautiful sight if you weren't covered in what feels like medieval glue. The helmet is off for now, but the marks it's left remain. Red indentations along your forehead, a rash where the strap rubbed your neck raw, and a mild throbbing above your eyebrow where you accidentally head-butted a rafter earlier. Your tunic is stiff, not just damp anymore, but literally crisp in spots where wax has cooled into tiny ridges. You flex your elbows and feel resistance. Your sleeves crackle. You try to scratch your side and discover your shirt is stuck to your skin. You peel it gently, only to find a solid patch of wax has fused linen to flesh just under your ribcage. There's no quick fix. You pour a bit of water from the bucket over it, hoping to loosen the bond. It doesn't help. The wax is hydrophobic, like your optimism. You try a corner of your knife, gently scraping. Better, sort of. It removes the top layer of wax and some hair. Meanwhile, a bee just one returns from who knows where and begins orbiting your head again. You wave her off without enthusiasm. She hovers, then zips away. You envy her freedom. You adjust. Your belt. It sticks. The leather has absorbed honey. Everything on your body now has a faint golden sheen. Your hands look glazed. Your boots are darker than they were this morning. Even your satchel made of sturdy hide and patched canvas smells faintly of burnt sugar. You walk round the apiary slowly, checking the hive lids one last time. It's part of your end-of-day ritual, but also a form of denial. You are not quite ready to go inside. Not because you love the outdoors, but because once you remove the suit, you will have to peel apart layers of hot, waxy misery and wash everything by hand in cold water with homemade lye soap. The soap stings. The water stings more. And worst of all, nothing ever truly gets clean. Historians still debate how medieval apiarists stored their wax. Some suggest they kept it in clay pots sealed with cloth and beeswax itself. Others argue that wooden molds were used, though less frequently due to fire risk. What they agree on is this: wax was valuable. People used it for candles, sealing, documents, waterproofing tools, and even cosmetic bombs. It was currency in its own way, traded and hoarded. A quiet treasure. You wish it felt like treasure now, but it doesn't. It feels like you've been glazed like a ham. You drag a wooden stool to the edge of the fence and sit heavily. The stool creaks, so do you. You roll up your sleeves, but only halfway wax has made the fabric stiff and uncooperative. You scratch at your scalp. You regret it instantly. Your fingers come back tacky. And now your hair has a sticky stripe down the part. You give up. The sun is warm on your face, but you're too tired to appreciate it. You stare at the fence post opposite you, wondering vaguely if bees ever take naps. You hope they do. You hope you can, too. You shift your weight and something crunches under your seat. You reach down and pull out a small lump of wax or ejected clump that must have fallen earlier. It's already gathering dust and leaves. You toss it aside and sigh. Your fingers stick to each other when they touch. You rub them together. The friction warms the wax again, making it even worse. It's a cycle now, sticky, scratchy, impossible to end, and still. The day isn't over. You haven't eaten. You haven't bathed. You haven't even counted how many stings you've accumulated since sunrise. At least 12. By feel. One directly under your armpit, which is beginning to pulse with a dull ache. Another on the side of your calf, making it hard to walk without limping. Your face somewhere near the jawline has gone numb on one side. You think that's new. Meanwhile, if you had a phone, you'd probably search how to remove beeswax from human skin. Then give up halfway through reading because you can't scroll with fingers that feel like they've been dipped in caramel and regret. The villagers don't understand your exhaustion. They just see you show up to market with blocks of wax and bottles of honey. They think it's peaceful. They call it a simple life. You'd laugh. But your throat's too dry. You finally stand. Everything aches. The stool creaks in relief as you leave it. You stretch, slowly, cautiously. You feel the wax on your lower back resist the motion, pulling slightly at your skin. You know you'll need to boil your clothes just to get them wearable again. And even then, they'll never truly be clean. They'll always carry the scent of smoke and bees and the strange, soapy perfume of a day spent wrestling nature's tiniest, most organized army. You gather your tools. You carry the wax molds inside. You set them near the hearth to cool fully. You remove your boots and pour out a small pool of honey water from one of them. You don't ask how it got there. You remove your gloves. Your hands are red, mottled, and swollen. You can no longer make a proper fist. You don't need to. The day is done. But the stickiness remains. You've got wax where no wax should ever go. And it will be there for days, possibly forever. But you lived. You made it to the end. Sort of. Because tomorrow, the bees will still be here. And so will you. That's not just a rash. You tell yourself it is. Because the alternative is too ridiculous to accept, but no. This is something else entirely. What began as a mild itch on your inner elbow has now spread like a slow-moving wildfire across the length of your arm, up your shoulder, and, judging by the heat behind your left knee, down your leg too. It's raised, it's red, it's angry, and it feels like your skin is staging a rebellion after being sealed inside wool, leather, wax, sweat, bee venom. And 100 bad decisions for 14 hours straight. You peel back the edge of your tunic gingerly, wincing as the cloth pulls away from your skin. There's a soft tearing sound, fabric parting from dried honey, or perhaps skin parting from sanity. The rash is streaked in lines that match the stitching of your shirt, proof that it's not just heat, it's friction, irritation, and probably a generous dose of insect foot bacteria. It itches like it's trying to tell you something loud and ancient and medically unsound. You scratch lightly at first, then more desperately, fingers dragging across swollen flesh. It doesn't help. It never does. All it accomplishes is adding new stings to old injuries. A welt under your armpit pulses with heat, already beginning to harden. You resist the urge to press on it. You know how that ends. It's not just your skin, either. You're lightheaded. Not the poetic kind, more the kind where the world starts to narrow at the edges like you're looking through a medieval spyglass smeared with wax. Your fingers tingle. Your eyelid won't stop twitching. You suspect mild dehydration, or maybe just reality finally rejecting you. You stagger toward the rain barrel behind your hut, lift the lid, and splash water onto your face. It's cold, refreshing, briefly euphoric. You rinse your arms, your neck. Your wrists, any exposed surface, and watch the water darken with soot and honey as it runs down your elbows. The relief is immediate and deeply temporary. Within moments, the itching returns. Worse, now damp and awake, you sit on the rim of the barrel and stare at your reflection in the ripples. Your face is puffier than you remember. One eye slightly swollen, a welt across your cheekbone. Your lips are chapped, your hair, tangled and crusted with bits of grass and veil fiber, makes you look like someone who lost a fight with a haystack and a fireplace. Historians still argue whether medieval beekeepers understood allergic reactions. Some accounts suggest they believed swelling was a form of purging the humors, that your body was releasing bad air or internal toxins. Others thought the bee's sting was healing, a natural remedy for gout, arthritis, or melancholy. Right now, you feel none of the healing, only the slow realization that your elbow looks like it's been boiled. You stand again, slower this time. You try to stretch. Your back protests. Your knees respond with a dry crunch. You shuffle to the doorway and lean against the frame, watching. The last light of the day slip behind the trees. The bees have gone quiet, tucked inside their hives, clustered in buzzing masses round the queen, warm and safe and unbothered. You envy them inside your hut. The smell of wax still lingers from earlier. The molds rest on the windowsill. Beginning to cool, you run your fingers over one still soft at the edges. But firming into shape, you'll trim them tomorrow. Maybe. Wrap them in scraps of cloth or tuck them into straw baskets. Assuming your hands work by morning, you check your fingers again. Red, swollen, their knuckles no longer visible beneath layers of stings and rash. You try to bend one. It cracks audibly. You try to laugh, but all that comes out is a wheeze. Meanwhile, your phone, if it existed, would probably suggest antihistamines or a cool compress. What you have instead is a damp cloth, a wooden bed frame, and an oil lamp that's threatening to go out any moment. You wipe down your arms with the cloth. It's rough, and it smells like last week's onion. You use it anyway. Your clothes are a disaster. The tunic is nearly unwearable now, stiff, soiled, and fused in places with hardened wax. You try to pull it off of your head. It sticks halfway. You get one arm out. Then panic slightly as the neckline catches on your chin. You twist, squirm, nearly fall into your shelf of dried herbs, and finally free yourself with the grace of a person evicting themselves from a second skin made of regrets. You toss the tunic onto a stool. It lands with a squelch dot beneath. Your undershirt isn't much better. Thin linen, soaked through. You peel that off too, and sit bare-chested for a moment, letting the cool air touch your skin. It's not much relief, but it's something. The rash still throbs, the stings still burn, but you're breathing a little easier now. Slowly you stretch out on the narrow wooden bed. Body aching, limbs heavy, cloth sticking to wounds in places that should never know adhesive friction. You stare at the ceiling. There's a spider in the corner, weaving slowly, patiently. You respect that spider. You envy its routine. Outside, the crickets have started. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barks once, then goes quiet. The wind rustles the trees, soft and low, like it knows you're done for the day and is trying not to wake you. And for a moment, despite everything, you feel still, sticky, stung, and possibly infected, but still. You survived another round, and you'll deal with the rash tomorrow. Probably. Beekeeper by day, candle seller by night. Because apparently suffering in the daylight isn't quite enough you also get to haul the fruits of your agony into tea. Try to smile with a swollen lip and convince people that these waxy little blocks of labor are worth parting with their hard-earned corn, barley, or bartered onions. You thought the stings were the worst part of your job. Then you met medieval, retail. You're up again before the stiffness leaves your limbs. Your tunic has dried in an unnatural shape, folded where it shouldn't fold, crackling slightly when you pull it over your rushy skin. You've cleaned up as best you can, meaning a cold splash from the bucket and a smear of herbal paste that smells like moldy mint. Your gloves are still damp. Your boots squelch when you walk. You load the wax blocks into a shoulder sack, careful not to stack them too close together. They'll stick, sweat, and melt if they're cranky. The road to town is little more than a winding cart track rutted deep with grooves from centuries of reluctant travel. You trudge along it, sack over your shoulder, posture bent, muttering soft curses as every step reminds you which muscles you forgot you had. You are not alone on the path others are walking to. A woman with a basket of eggs, a boy leading a goat that clearly wants to go anywhere else. A monk with the face of a man who's already judged everyone's soul and found them wanting. No. One talks to you. You look like a chimney sweep who lost his chimney. Town is a cluster of wooden buildings too close together, all leaning slightly into the wind and each other like gossiping crones. The main square smells of fish, old straw, and boiled turnips. A few stalls are set up, already vegetables, dried herbs, the ever-present barrel of pickled something. You set up at the edge, next to the woman who sells yields out of a wicker basket, and always seems faintly disappointed in your presence. You lay out your wax, not candles, yet not here, just blocks, square, heavy, golden, still faintly warm. You've carved your mark into each one with a dull knife, a crooked line you hope. Looks enough like a bee's wing to be charming. You're not sure it is. The first buyer appears mid-morning, a merchant's assistant. Judging by the slightly cleaner tunic and the permanent frown, he picks up a block, sniffs it, knocks on it like he's checking a melon, then squints at you. You say nothing. Your lip still throbs. He haggles anyway. You give in immediately. You don't have the energy to pretend it's worth more than it is. One block down. You sell a second to the local priest. He needs it for altar candles. You nod, trying to look pious. He nods back, trying to look superior. You both succeed. He underpays you by a third. You let him dock, then come the questions. A man asks if your wax will burn clean. You nod. He asks if it smells like roses. You shrug. He asks if you can dye it blue for his daughter's wedding. You blink at him, wondering what part of your chart. Swollen face made him think you offer custom shades. Meanwhile, your rash has returned with vengeance. Every movement grinds shirt against welt, welt against sweat, sweat against wax. You shift your weight constantly, trying not to scratch in front of customers. You fail. Someone finally asks if you have candles. You nod again and pull a bundle from your bag, then tapers, slightly uneven, some twisted during cooling, handmade, humble, the kind of thing that will burn for hours and still smell faintly of bees and regret. You explain this not in words, but with a look. They buy too and toss you a coin that's slightly bent and smells like cheese. Historians still argue over the economics of medieval wax. It was valuable more than tallow. Definitely more than rushes, but how valuable? Some say only the church and nobility could afford beeswax candles. Others point to market records that show humble sellers like you scraping the living from small sales, day by day. You're inclined to believe the latter. You've never seen nobility in this part of town. Just tired eyes and calloused hands dot by. Midday. Your back aches worse than it did after high four. You've sold 7 blocks and have your candles. Enough to justify the trip. Barely. You pack up, counting the coins with sticky fingers, and begin the walk home. The sack is lighter, but your legs aren't. Each step pulls at the blisters on your heels. You pass the same monk. He still looks disappointed. You nod respectfully and try not to limp. Back home, the hut greets you like an indifferent landlord. You drop the sack by the door, take a long drink from the water barrel, and sit in the dirt. The sun is lower now. The hives buzz softly in the distance. You don't move. You don't think. You just exist. A crusted statue of wood smoke, sweat, and silent achievement. Meanwhile, your non-existent phone would probably notify you of a great deal on ergonomic arch support and gentle fragrancy. Andals, you close your eyes and imagine a world where those exist. You imagine a room that smells not of beeswax, but lavender. A room where light switches replace flint, where soap comes in bars that don't scrape your skin. But when you open your eyes, the hives are still there. The bucket is still full of ash. Your body still pulses with a soft, full-body throb that says, you're alive, but not by much tomorrow. You'll start again. Beekeeper by day, candle seller by night, and a cautionary tale in between. Marks, mead, and mild regret. 3 things that, at first glance, might seem unrelated, but in your current reality, they are all neatly braided together in one final errand that rounds out your already overfull day. Because after harvesting combs, boiling wax, being stung in 13 different and extremely inconvenient places, and nearly losing your mind at the market, you now have to deliver a few precious jars of honey to the local monastery abbata. Deal made months ago that, in a moment of priesting optimism, you agreed to, and you cannot back out now. Not unless you want to be haunted by a passive-aggressive monk with parchment and a quill. The honey is packed carefully into clay pots sealed with wax and tied off with a scrap of linen. You double knot each one, because the last time you didn't, a pot leaked down your leg. And you walked into the abbey trailing bees and embarrassment. Your tunic still smells faintly of that moment. The abbey is a short walk from the edge of the village, set back against a small hill. You've always found its location slightly smug, like it's above all this. The building itself is simple, stone and wood, with narrow windows and an eternal echo. It smells like old books and judgment. The bell tower rings just once as you approach, as if announcing your arrival to the heavens in a tone that reads as both disapproving and amused. You knock. No answer. You knock again. A young monk eventually opens the door. His expression suggests that he had just sat down with a warm cup of broth and resents the interruption. He squints at you, as if trying to assess your worth through layers of soot and bee stings. You hold up the basket. I've brought the honey. You say. He nods slowly, as if processing not only your words, but your general state of existence. You're late. You blink at him. You're not. But you also don't have the energy to explain that the path was muddy. The fire pot exploded, and you had to fight off what felt like a hive-wide mutiny just to collect this batch. You say nothing. You hold the basket higher. He takes it without thanks and gestures for you to follow him inside. The interior of the abbey is cool, quiet, and to your tired senses almost too clean. The air is thick with incense and unreadable expressions. You shuffle behind the monk down a stone hallway lit by narrow beams of sunset. Your boots echo. Your tunic crackles with dried wax. You are, as always, out of place. You enter the small storage room, and the monk places your honey gently beside several other pots. Some are yours from before. Some look suspiciously like the ones you sold to the town merchant. You say nothing. The barter was from need, after all a fair trade. Since you rarely drink, but occasionally like the idea of it. The monks make it. From your honey, fermenting it with herbs and wild yeast. It's stronger than anything the village sells. They say it's for religious ceremonies. You're fairly certain it also fuels late-night scripture copying and quiet, judgmental debates over doctrine. You're handed a flask small, round, sealed with wax. You nod in thanks. The monk nods back. It's the most human moment you've had today. Historians still question the economic relationships between monasteries and local tradespeople. Some records show fair, structured exchanges, honey for beer, wax for copying services. Others hint at abuse of power, with monks demanding goods under the veil of spiritual obligation. You don't know which category your deal falls into. All you know is that this flask smells slightly medicinal and promises a few hours of peace if you sip it slowly enough. You step back outside, blinking at the evening light. The wind picks up slightly. It catches your hair, now crusted with both smoke and lint from your veil. You wrap the flask in a cloth and tuck it into your belt. The walk home is longer this time, or it feels that way. Every step is a reminder of today's efforts. Your knees click, your hip burns, your back hums like an old hive. You pass a few villages. They nod. You nod back. No one speaks. Everyone's tired. The town lives on labor and mild disapproval. You fit in perfectly. You reach your hut just as the last of the daylight disappears. The bees are quiet, settled. If you still buzz around the edges of the hives, finishing their evening shifts, you pause. Watching them, they're tireless, precise, purposeful. You want to admire them. Instead, you feel a strange sort of kinship, the kind that can only come from mutual suffering. You duck inside, hang your sack on a hook, and sit on the stool you swore earlier you'd never sit on again. You pop the wax seal on the flask. The mead smells sharp, sweet, and faintly herbal. You take a sip. It's stronger than you remember. It warms your throat immediately, then your chest, then your fingers. You stare into the fireless hearth-end. Feel the corners of your mouth twitch. You mate it. Not gracefully, not quietly, not without rash, stings, or indignity, but you made it. Meanwhile, your imaginary phone would probably suggest a mead and bath combo to restore your mood. But all you have is this stool, the flask, and the faint memory of a bee crawling across your lip at sunrise. You take another sip. Monks, mead, and mild regret. You would untrade it for anything. Except maybe a bathtub. Sleep is a theory. It's certainly not a guarantee. Not here. Not now. And definitely not after a day like this. You lie in your bed, if you can call it that, more of a creaking frame covered by a flattened sack of hay, listening to the sounds of your own exhaustion. Every breath rasps through your throat like parchment. Every heartbeat echoes faintly in your swollen wrists. Your legs buzz faintly, not with energy, but with the phantom memory of bees. Your tunic lies discarded nearby, still stiff, still cursed. Your undershirt hangs from the foot of the bed, a sad, crumpled symbol of how many times fabric can betray a person. The room is dark, lit only by the faint orange glow of an oil lamp. The walls are made of old timber, cracked and dry, and the air inside smells like wax, smoke, and the slow decline of ambition. You shift slightly. Your rush ignites like a bonfire. A welt on your hip pulses with its own heartbeat. You try to lie still. You try to breathe slowly. You try to sleep. You cannot. Your arms itch. Your legs ache. Your eyes refuse to close. Because when they do, you hear buzzing. Not outside, inside. Your ears, your brain. Your members, every part of you is still vibrating with the rhythm of hive life. You remember the way the bees moved. How they flowed over the combs like thoughts you couldn't quite grasp. You remember the sound of their anger when the queen was disturbed, the way their wings rose in pitch when the honeycomb cracked. The smell of wax and smoke and panic clings to your nose like perfume gone sour. You roll over. Bad idea. Your shoulder protests. Your elbow sticks to the sheet. A chunk of dried wax crumbles from your forearm and rolls across the bed like a tiny, disappointing marble. You flick it away and sigh. You consider removing the cloth wrapped round your hand, where 3 stings have swollen your fingers into thick, clumsy petals. You decide against it. Too much effort. You turn the pillow over cooler on the other side, but also faintly damp. You don't ask why. Some things are better left unexplored. Sleep is a theory. Your body is tired, but your nerves are still on. High alert. You flinch at soft noises, the creak of the roof beam, the rustle of a mouse in the corner, the faint groan of a wind-shifted shutter. Each one stirs something in your brain. Is that a bee? Did one get in? Are they back? You sit up briefly, checking the edges of the veil you left hanging on the wall, just in case. The netting stirs slightly in the breeze. You stare at it. It stares back. You feel the tickle of imagined wings across your cheek and slap at nothing. This has become a routine. You lie back down, eyes open, staring into the beams above. They look like ribs arching overhead. You wonder if bees dream. You wonder if they remember faces. You wonder if they know that every drop of wax you melted today came from hundreds of their bodies, thousands of their hours, their lives condensed into squares of fuel you sold for 3 bent coins and a promise of mead. Historians still debate whether beekeepers formed bonds with their hives. Some record mention naming queens. Others describe mourners informing bees when their keepers died. You don't know where you fall on that spectrum. You feel more like a tolerated invader than a friend. But still, the hive stays, the bees return. And you wake each day to tend them, curse them, and thank them. Meanwhile, your phone, should it exist, would be lighting up with suggestions from meditation apps and soothing nature sounds. But you already have those. They're just real. The sound of the wind rustling the trees, the soft hum from the nearest hive, the rhythmic creak of your neighbor's weather vane, the crackle of cooling wax on the WINDOWSILL. You close your eyes again. Try to think of something soft you picture. A field of flowers, but you're in a bee suit. You picture a quiet stream, but you're ankle deep in mud. You picture a feast, but you're eating with swollen fingers and a split lip. You picture sleep. You do not find it. Instead, you find the faint outline of dawn bleeding into the corner of your window. Already, somehow, you must have dozed for a minute, maybe 5. Your neck is sore from the angle. Your mouth is dry. Your left foot is still tingling from the sting behind your heel. You swing your legs over the side of the bed and sit in the half-darkness. The day hasn't begun. Not really, but it hasn't ended either. You're caught in between, the borderland between rest and repetition, between hope and habit, between the moment you open the first hive and the moment you close the last. You breathe in, you breathe out, you listen. The bees are already awake. Congratulations, you've lasted 1 day. Not metaphorically, not as a sentiment of entrance. Literally -20 4 hours, give or take, inside the unforgiving rhythm of a medieval beekeeper's life. You've woken before the sun, wrapped yourself in layers of scratchy cloth and fire-scented leather, endured stings in places polite people don't name, smoked out insects with the confidence of someone who clearly doesn't know what they're doing, and melted wax in a shed that might double as a death trap. And now you get to do nothing at all, at least for a few minutes, because the day is over, and the world hasn't asked for anything else. Yet, You're sitting on a stump outside your hut, which has finally stopped creaking. The air smells like damp grass and old wood. A breeze stirs your sweat-matted hair. The hives are quiet. Your body hums with that peculiar post-torture stillness when the pain doesn't scream anymore. It just whispers in every joint and muscle, a soft reminder that you're still made of something fragile. Your arms hang limp, your knees ache, your face, in the half-light, looks older than it did this morning. You glance at the hive nearest you, Hive 3, the troublemaker. The one where the comb collapsed and the queen nearly had you executed. They're calm now. Clusters of bees fan the entrance, creating airflow. Inside, they're rebuilding, always rebuilding. It's humbling in a way you didn't expect. You spent all day disturbing them, and they never once stopped working. You ruined their ceiling, stole their winter food, knocked over their dead, and they still just carried on. You sip the last of the mead. It's warm now, slightly sour. It hits your stomach with a dull splash and a reminder that your last real meal was 2 bites of onion and a chunk of stale bread. Still, it softens the world round the edges. You lean back. Your spine doesn't like it. You lean anyway. You can't feel your fingers properly. They've swollen. Your legs are worse. You try to lift one and find it reluctant. You poke a spot near your ankle and the skin doesn't bounce back. You laugh once, just to see if you still can. You can. It's not a good laugh, but it's yours. Congratulations. You've lasted 1 day. The truth is, no one lasts longer than that. Not really. You just survive 1 day at a time, again and again, until something winter, infection, accident, or a noble sudden interest in wax tariff stakes the job or your life. People don't write songs about beekeepers. They don't paint portraits. You are not invited to feasts. You're expected to deliver honey, nod respectfully, and disappear before anyone important notices you were there. Historians still argue about whether this job was chosen or assigned, respected or pitied. Some say beekeepers held secret wisdom, knew the rhythms of nature, lived with a kind of sacred closeness to the land. Others suggest it was the job nobody else wanted, the one given to the unlucky, the unwanted, the stubborn. You don't know which you are. Maybe both. Maybe neither. You close your eyes, not sleep. Just rest, the kind where your brain floats above your body, cataloging the damage, blisters on your hill, swollen lips, that mysterious sting from behind your ear, the rash that is now less of a patch and more of a personality trait. You breathe in. The air smells faintly of clover. The bees must have found a new patch nearby. You know you should go inside, but part of you wants to sit here until morning, just to prove that you can, just to see if the earth remembers you, if it notices what you've endured, if it cares. You whisper to the hive, not loudly, just a murmur, a simple thanks. You are not sure why. Maybe to the bees, maybe to the job itself, maybe to no one. You've lasted 1 day. Tomorrow, it begins again. Tonight, you've traveled far, not across miles, but across discomfort, across moments stitched together by sweat and fire and the low, unrelenting hum of winged persistence. Your hands have worked, your feet have ached, and your breath has been wrapped in smoke and quiet resolve. And now, there's nothing left to do, no hives to open, no wax to press, no buzzing in your ears, at least not right now. Just this stillness, just this space. Let it stretch out a little. Let the aches slowly untie themselves. Let the muscles, sore and swollen, begin to soften with rest. You've done enough. You've earned a stillness that isn't empty but full, full of the effort it took to arrive at this quiet, full of small, ordinary victories no one else will see. Let the sounds fade. The bees, the breeze, the gentle creak of the hive lids settling into silence. Let the light sink into shadow, soft and slow. You don't need to hold on to the day anymore. It's gone. It's served its purpose. The honey is harvested. The fire is out. You're not in the past now. You're here, in your room, in your body, and you get to rest. No smoke, no wool, no stings, just the hush. And maybe, just maybe, a quiet little gratitude for the things you no longer have to endure, like sticky boots, stinging armor, or boiling wax in a shack with no windows. You're warm, you're safe, and tomorrow is far away. Sleep well, Beekeeper.